Ethan Parker sat alone in his apartment overlooking the city of Chicago. The room was silent except for the glow of his phone, another rejection email, another failed opportunity, another reminder that life wasn't going the way he had planned. At 32 years old, Ethan felt lost. Years earlier, he had dreamed of building a successful business, buying a home, and creating the life he imagined. Instead, he was drowning in debt, struggling with anxiety, and questioning everything. That night, he stared out the window at the endless city lights. "God," he whispered, "if you're real, why won't you answer me?" Nothing happened. No voice from heaven, no miracle, just silence. Or so he thought. The next morning, Ethan woke up exhausted. He grabbed coffee and headed to an interview he desperately needed. Halfway there, a strange feeling came over him. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it. There was no logical reason. Yet every part of him felt uneasy. For several minutes he ignored it, but the feeling only grew stronger. Finally, he pulled his car over and sat there. "What am I doing?" he asked himself. The interview was important. Missing it would be crazy. Still, he turned around and drove home. He spent the rest of the day feeling foolish. Weeks later, he learned the company had been involved in a major fraud investigation. Employees lost their jobs almost overnight. Ethan sat frozen when he heard the news. The uneasy feeling suddenly made sense. For the first time, he wondered if God had been protecting him. Months passed. Life remained difficult. But Ethan started paying attention to moments he once ignored. Small moments, quiet moments, the kind most people rush past. One evening, he visited a nearby park after a stressful day. As he sat on a bench watching the sunset, an elderly man approached. "Mind if I sit here?" the stranger asked. Ethan nodded. For a few minutes, they watched the sky in silence. Then the man smiled. "You know," he said, "sometimes God closes doors because he can see what we can't." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. Those words felt personal. The stranger had no idea what Ethan was going through. Yet somehow he had spoken directly into his situation. Before Ethan could respond, the man stood up. "Keep moving forward," he said. Then he walked away. Ethan never saw him again. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. Coincidence? Maybe, or maybe not. Over the next year, Ethan began creating space for silence. Instead of waking up and immediately scrolling through social media, he spent 10 quiet minutes alone each morning. No distractions, no notifications, no noise. At first, nothing happened, but slowly things began to change. His thoughts became clearer. His anxiety started to ease. Decisions that once felt impossible became easier to understand. The answers weren't coming from dramatic signs. They arrived through peace, a calm certainty, a gentle sense of direction. One day, Ethan received an unexpected phone call from an old friend named Michael. Michael was launching a small company and needed help. The opportunity seemed risky. Everyone around Ethan advised him against it. But deep inside, he felt peace. Not excitement, not certainty, just peace. For weeks, he wrestled with the decision. Then he remembered something he had learned. Fear screams. God often whispers, and whispers require listening. Ethan accepted the offer. The first year was difficult. There were setbacks, failures, moments when he questioned everything. Yet every time he considered quitting, that same peace returned. 5 years later, the company had become one of the fastest-growing businesses in its industry. Ethan's life had changed completely, but the success wasn't what amazed him most. What amazed him was looking back and seeing how every step had been guided. The closed doors, the uncomfortable feelings, the chance conversations, the quiet moments. None of them seemed important at the time, yet together they formed a path he could only recognize in hindsight. One evening, Ethan stood outside his new home watching the sunset. The sky glowed gold and orange. For a moment, he remembered the desperate man sitting alone in that apartment years earlier. The man who thought God was silent. The man who believed heaven wasn't listening. A smile appeared on his face, because now he understood something that had taken years to learn. God had never stopped speaking, not once. The problem was never God's silence. The problem was the noise, the distractions, the fear, the endless rush of life that made it impossible to hear the whisper. As darkness settled over the horizon, Ethan closed his eyes. The world around him was quiet, and in that quiet he felt something powerful, peace. Not because every problem was solved, not because life was perfect, but because he finally understood. Sometimes God's voice isn't heard with your ears, sometimes it's heard with your heart.